Alright people, so far we have kind of created our overall kind of template, our page template, changed our title block as needed, and we've placed in our viewports, made sure that everything is kind of the correct scale and whatnot. So right now what we're going to do is look at our filled regions, our annotations, our dimensions, and then in the following we're kind of going to look at everything to kind of make sure that our drawing's nice and pretty and it's not looking really rough like this for printing. So that's going to be the next video. Right now let's jump into annotations. So first things first is we want to come up into our label and we're going to click on our label. Now what I want to do first is kind of minimize all of these different side stacks down in here. All right, and what we're dealing with right now is our kind of label up in here, and that is to deal with this text style. So we can grab that, and we're also dealing with our shape style. So the shape style is going to kind of dictate the lines that we're using, and the text style is obviously the font. So it's going to ask us three different things before we get started, right? And that's a start point, an intersection, and an end point. So we're going to go and dimension, or we're going to annotate, sorry, this kind of window. So we're going to start point by clicking once, dragging down, there's our intersection by clicking again, and then our end point. I prefer these 90-degree angles. Now you'll notice once I've finished that end point, it's kind of come up a component definition. Now that's because over here we created this kind of window in Sketchup as a component. So it's kind of really cool that layout is actually kind of referencing that component as well. For the time being though, we don't really care too much. All right, so we've got window there. All right, we're going to type this window 1500 high by 600 wide. I'm not 100% sure what the dimensions were, but that's close enough. Now if we want to change our dimensions, obviously we come over here to the text style and we can kind of change obviously our standard kind of fonts. So we can highlight this and we can kind of change it to an Arial, and we can kind of change the size to a 10, and we can put bold on it as well. All right, so very easy to change the text styles as well. The other thing we can do is change our leader line. So by selecting this, we can come over to our shape style, right? And at the moment, stroke is turned on. That's why it's highlighted. Fill and pattern are turned off, all right? But we don't care about those too much. So stroke, it's currently at a 0.5. Now, in order to make a real difference, let's put it up to 2, and you can see how thick it's just gotten. Selecting it again, let's put it back down to a 0.2. Alright, and the other thing that we want to do is maybe change the dash line. Alright, normally I would keep it solid, but this is just proving a point. And then the start arrow here, what we're going to do is we're going to change that to a different arrow as well. Alright, and you see just there we've got our nice arrow, or a changed arrow, a different line style, and then a bold font. So that's annotations. It's very easy. The next thing that we're going to be looking at is filled regions. All right, so for a filled region, what we want to do is we want to come over here to our side stack, and you've got here pattern fill. All right, now normally what you've got is a series of folders here. So at the moment, let's kind of do a pattern fill on this kind of base down here, this concrete slabbed floor. All right, so we're going to, because we're doing a pattern, all right, we're going to come into material symbols. We're going to find cast in place concrete, which I've already got selected here. And notice here we've got rotation and we've got a scale. Well, I'm going to worry about these in 2 seconds. Select our cast in place concrete, come over, select our rectangle, right? And notice how it will automatically snap in to our kind of model. Now at the moment I have a blue color turned on so you guys can easily see, right, where we're placing our annotation. Right, so at the moment we got blue, we don't want blue, so we can come back up here to our shape style, and you see here fill and pattern are currently turned on. Right, so we want to turn off the fill. Right, oh sorry, select it, turn off our fill. Right, and you'll notice here that we've just gone back to our black, but we've still got our pattern fill there. Now obviously what we want is probably a white so we can actually see our pattern, so let's turn fill back on. Click on our fill color, which will open up our color palette, and we can change this to, oh, let's select it. So we've selected it, click on our fill again here, and notice we've got our RGB sliders, and we can slide that all the way up and make it a nice white. The other thing that we can do is we can kind of make this line here, because obviously we're cutting through the concrete. Oh, let's fix that up just slightly. Right, we can change our stroke level. Right, so we can come in and we can kind of give this a nice heavy or thick line weight. Right, turn on our stroke, and just like that, we've got a nice heavy line surrounding that cut area. Okay, the other thing that we want to do is select it again, and coming down here into our pattern fills, back here we got rotation and scale. So scale is obviously going to increase it or decrease it. We're going to drop it down to 0.75, and we're going to also change our rotation to 15 degrees. Alright, 30 degrees there. Right, and just like that, we've now got a really nice fill across the in situ concrete floor. So the last thing that we kind of want to look at is our dimensions. Now dimensions are very easy. So what we're going to do first is select our dimension, and we're going to collapse a few of these styles down. Alright, and that gives us room to kind of open up our dimension style here, and we can select this. Alright, have our dimensions selected. Now there's a couple key points here before we actually start dimensioning. Right, you've got above, center, so this is where your actual dimension is going to be going, and then how it's going to be displayed, and your leader style. So at the moment, leader style, we're not going to have a leader, because that basically doesn't mean, that means that we don't want an arrow facing our numbers. And the other thing that we want to do is change our length here. We don't want it in meters, we want things in millimeters, because that's how we display things in architecture. And we want its precision to be 1 millimeter. Okay, so now that those are all kind of sorted, we can come through and we can dimension, say, something like this wall. Right, come through and select. Right, so you want to click at the start point, click at the end point, come up to where you need to, and notice it'll snap in, and click again. Now one last thing that we forgot to do was to turn off our millimeters here. So what we're going to do is select this, come back to our dimension style, and just turn off display units, right? And same for this one, select it and come up to this top right hand corner and display units and turn them off. Now you'll also notice that this 200 is kind of cutting off our dimension a little bit here, which isn't overly ideal. Right, so what we want to do is select it and then double click on it, and that'll allow us to now move it. Right, so if we're going to move it up to show those now, we probably want a leader line on it. So we can select off, select our dimension again, right, which is actually selected the dimension, not the text this time around. Over on the right hand side here, we've got a leader style, right, and we can change this to 1 or 2 segments. So let's go 1 segment, and that'll kind of just now reference it. The other thing to note is if you want these circles here or don't want these circles, if you want to change them, again, you can select your dimension, right, come up to shape style and change it from this, this circular to something like these little lines here. Now this is typically how you would do it, right, is have these little lines here, and probably drop the font back to, let's go nice and small. Oh, that's far too fat. 3, let's go 2 and 2, and drop our point back down to a 1.10. Right, and it gives us a really nice kind of line there. So we're going to do the same for this dimension. We're going to kind of change these to those 2 slashes, change it down to a 2 point. 2 point, I think is what we had it on, and then we're going to change this down to a 0.2 as well. Right, it just gives us a really nice line dimension there. Right, so that kind of finishes it up for annotations, dimensions, and filled regions. The next thing we're going to be looking at in the next video is kind of getting ready to export or print this. So I'll see you guys in the next video.